Alright, I'm going to do a quick repeat of this demo because the sound quality was fairly poor in the last version. So this is for my two-dimensional comp class, and we are starting out with the pen tool in Illustrator. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my reference image. This will be the leaf tracing if you've already done this. And I'm just going to open it. I photographed this image with my phone, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab it to get started. I'm not going to worry about the artboard or any of that stuff right now. What I will worry about is this image not moving around while I trace it. So the first thing I want to do is open up my layers. You can do this over here in this panel, and you can also find your layers within the window tool. So you can click window and layers, or you can use the key command F7. So there are several different ways that you can find this. You're just going to lock this layer so that it doesn't get picked up or moved around while you're working by clicking in this area beside the eyeball, and that'll lock it. The next thing you're going to do is create an additional layer so that you can draw on that second layer. So I'm going to click create new layer, and this looks like a little page turned up at the corner. Alright, now you're ready to go. The two main tools that you're going to use for this process are going to be your pen tool and your anchor point tool. The pen tool is sort of, the way we're going to approach it is like connect the dots. And there are several different ways to draw with the pen tool, but I find this to be the easiest way for students who are just starting out. One helpful key command to learn for this is P for the pen tool. This will start and stop your lines, and Shift C to grab that anchor point adjustment tool. If you learn these, you'll speed up your drawing process a lot, so it is very beneficial. I'm going to zoom in on my drawing with Command plus, and I want you to think of this sort of like connect the dots. We're going with the highs and the lows of the valley. So this is going to be the high point, this is going to be the low point, this is another high point, and I'm just going to continue along like that. You notice I'm getting this big shape in the middle of my drawing, and what this is this is a fill. Over here you can decide if you want your fill or your outline to be a specific color. So I'm going to make my fill transparent, and I'm going to choose a color for my outline that's very easy to stand out. I'm going to use black in this instance since my drawing is red. And if you don't already have your colors pulled out, you can do that here. You can also do that under window. And then I'm also going to adjust my stroke. So you can find your strokes panel in window, or you can find it over here in your toolbar. So I'm just going to make it a little bit thicker so that I can see it more easily. Alright, so since I've stopped making a line here, I'm just going to go back to that little dot on the end. These are called nodes. And I'm going to hover over it with my mouse until an extra little line pops up. And you see how I have a crosshair and now this little line pops up? That means that I'm going to continue that line segment. So I click to continue. I'm just going to go down here and keep playing connect the dots with this. You notice that I'm not making a whole bunch of nodes. You don't want a ton of them. It's actually very easy to make these curves with very few extra nodes. I'm just going to click the points of each of these little edges of the leaf. You might ask yourself why we're doing this. One of the great things about Illustrator is that it's resolution independent. And that means that I can always scale my drawing. In fact, I could scale this drawing from the size of a postage stamp to the size of a billboard because it's a vector. Vectors are not dependent on things like pixels, like our normal types of images that you're probably already familiar with, like a JPEG or a PNG, but rather they're actually like a plotting of this image through math equations. So you can scale it to basically any size with relatively little little issue. Alright, so I've gone around this leaf and I've just kind of clicked on the high points and some of the low points depending on how big the distance is. And now I'm ready to make my adjustments. And this looks kind of ridiculous right away, right? You probably are thinking, why does it look like that? And I haven't done anything to move the lines yet. I can use my anchor point tool, and there are two ways that you can make adjustments. You can first drag a set of handles out of each point that you've made, so the nodes can be manipulated in that manner. And through those handles, I can just sort of nudge and refine my lines. But actually, the easier way to manipulate the drawings, and this is such a great feature that hasn't always been available, is to actually click on the line segment for the path and just pull outwards. Get it close enough and then tweak it with the handles. You'll notice this has a sort of an S-curve. All I have to do is bring that handle up above and it will continue to manipulate it. The best way to learn this is through just practice. Try pulling the handles in different directions and see what happens. So I can just drag these points around until they fit my drawing. And I can do some detailed refinements with those handles. I can also make some decisions for the sake of it just looking a little nicer. I'm going to give myself a little more space in here. I'm going to make that line smoother by choosing to kind of bring this out a little bit more. So Illustrator is a really refined way of drawing on the computer. In fact, you can get really precise, clean illustrations with it. It's really great because if you do some artwork for a project and you have to put it on a business card and you want to put it on some flyers and you want to put it on maybe an extra sign or something like that, and on the web, you don't have to continually redraw it. You don't have to draw it super gigantic and then keep scaling it down for each purpose. Vectors, you just export it for the purpose that you need, and it's done and it's ready. And once you get the hang of it, as you can see, it's really quick. And you can just refine everything with those handles once you get it in the general proximity of where you want it. Alright, once I have all that in place, now I can go over and look at what it's going to look like without that drawing behind it. So I go back over to my layers panel over here, or I go through window and layers, whichever one you prefer, and I just click on the eyeball that's beside my drawing, and that's going to take the drawing away. And then I come over here and I have my stroke, which is the outline, and I have a fill. So now that I'm done with the drawing, I'm going to swap that by clicking this little arrow, and I can see what my leaf illustration looks like. So it does look pretty good, actually. I'm going to scale this down to fit on my artboard by holding the Shift key and grabbing the corner and dragging it inward. You're going to make sure that you release the mouse before you release the Shift key so that everything scales in proportion. Because if you don't hold Shift while scaling, it will distort your image, right? And we don't want it to be all stretched out. So you can click Command Z if you accidentally do that to step backwards, and that will undo those things. Alright, and the last thing that you want to do is to open up our artboards that we already did as a group. I don't know where I saved it to. Maybe I didn't save it. So I'll just save this for the moment, and I want to change the name, and I will call this Color Theory 1. Alright, it's saving us an Adobe Illustrator native file. That's great for our current process, and just save. Click OK. And you are ready to approach the next one. You can also get rid of this drawing at this point by just unlocking it, making it visible, and then clicking on the trash can and deleting the layer. So now we are here. Alright, and that's all we need. Thank you so much.